Absolutely, and yes, welcome to it, the Expresso Midday Show. My name is Kath Megaw. Great to have you with us. And of course, yes, intermittent fasting is all that we're talking about today. Well, not all, but part of it, exactly. And it's a form of time-restricted fasting that has become an increasingly popular diet option for losing weight and improving overall health. Now, there are several methods of doing intermittent fasting to choose from. The well-known 16-8 method or the 5-2 method, which we'll be talking about as well. And this is an eating plan, is said to improve your metabolic health and could possibly even expand your lifespan. So we didn't have all the answers. That's why we have the expert here. Kath Megaw joins us to chat about this. Great to see you again after what has been a very long time of lockdown.
It's way too long, yeah.
So let's talk intermittent fasting. And I think that's my doctor calling me about my intermittent fasting, which I will put down. Thank you very much. Talk to me about why it is such a popular fasting method.
So I think it's actually grounded in some really good science. And so I'm just going to quickly explain that, because I think if you understand that, we can see why it works and why there would be benefits. So it basically puts you into a new metabolic state where your body converts fat into energy, which produces ketones, and your body can use the ketones then to give you energy, but ketones have a wonderful ability to regenerate your cells.
Okay.
And that's why there is long-lasting benefits when you are in regular states of ketosis.
Yes, yes.
So that is the premise of intermittent fasting, and some of the best research that we have to date comes out of Johns Hopkins, which is in the United States, and they've done a lot of research around it because they're very interested in the ketogenic diet for epilepsy.
Okay.
So what the intermittent fasting does to our bodies is it basically prolongs a period where there's no food intake, so our body moves from having had food to supply us with immediate energy to having to use different forms of fuel in the form of excess glucose that's stored in the liver, and the body uses that up, and then eventually the body gets to the point where it's got no more other areas to go to, and it will start to break down fat for energy.
Yeah.
And that is the place you need to get to make intermittent fasting successful. So that is why you've probably seen for different phenotypes and different genetic makeup and how your body looks will determine the length of fasting you need to do as part of your intermittent fasting. So there's not a whole lot of clinical research to back that up, and there's a lot more studies that are going to be needed to really identify specific health benefits. Funny enough, a lot more research, there's a lot more studies done in animals, because animals instinctively do a lot of intermittent fasting.
Exactly, yeah. If you think about it, animals don't eat 3 meals a day. Some of them eat one big meal one day, and they go without for a couple of days until the next big day.
Exactly, yeah.
So I've mentioned two in the beginning, the 16-8 method and the 5-2 method. Are those the only two methods of intermittent fasting, or are there others?
So the two main one is you'll have times in the day where you don't eat in the 24-hour period. So that's one type, and then you have the 5-2, which is where you actually have a whole day where you don't eat, so a 24-hour period, alternating with a day of eating, possibly another day of eating, and then a whole day without eating again. So that's the 5-2. So the 16-8 could also be the 24. It could also be the 12. It could, so there's a number of versions. So it's basically you spend 16 hours without food.
Yes. And
then you'll spend 8 hours where you'll include food in your diet.
Okay.
And that's where the challenge lies, because there's also just equally similar amounts of studies done when people restrict food, they tend to overeat when they've got access to food.
Okay. So how do you then determine which method works best for you, for, like you said, your body type, your genetic makeup, what your body requires? How do you then decide which intermittent fasting method is the best to go with?
Well, I think there are a number of factors. The one is, firstly, who should not fast, do intermittent fasting. So that would be pregnant women, because the placenta needs to have nourishment all the time. The placenta cannot fast, because then you're going to compromise the health of your baby. moms who are breastfeeding should not fast because those moms need to produce breast milk every 2 to 3 hours. And if there's no food going in, they're not going to be able to produce the quality of breast milk. So when you decide, so if you don't fit into those categories of high risk, people also who struggle with eating disorders, they also should not do intermittent fasting because it's not healthy from a psychological point of view.
Okay.
So depending on your doctor guiding you, the dietitian that you're seeing guiding you, you will be able to establish with that person what will be the safest method for you. And depending on if you have a large amount of weight to lose, if that's the goal, or you have hypertension or you're at risk of cardiovascular disease, that will also help determine then which level of intermittent fasting
so
you're
always
going to
seek
do.
the help of a professional.
I
Let's
think
quickly
that
talk
is
about
really important.
the foods that you should be eating while you're intermittent fasting, very quickly.
Very good, because if you now, as I said to you, going to change the body's use of energy into fat and ketones, so if you then break your intermittent fast using sugars, then you've actually just derailed everything that you've done. So you want to make sure that you do fresh fruits, vegetables, proteins and good healthy fats. Those are really important to use when you are breaking your, and then as the time goes on, you can then include some grains towards the end of your eating period.
Shoo. All right, so there's clearly so much for us to learn and to talk about. So do make sure that you stay tuned because Clinical Dietitian Kath Megaw will be answering some more questions around intermittent fasting a bit later on.